Welcome back, or welcome to the Ride and Inspire Rawcast, where we talk about mountain biking, about neuroscience, and how to build a brain and a body that supports your goals instead of sabotaging them. Today, I would like to dive into something very powerful, your brain's so-called negativity bias, and why reality is very subjective, why your brain has a guard called the Reticular Activating System, how it filters your reality, and of course, I'll give you hands-on tools on how mountain biking can retrain your attention and actually far beyond the trails. So if you've ever wondered why your brain remembers that one bad ride or that one section you didn't ride on that day, or the one negative comment below your social media post, then this episode will help you and everything will start making more sense afterwards. At the end of today's episode, I'll give you practical tools also to turn what you've learned into real action. And on my Patreon channel, I'll be offering a free downloadable cheat sheet for these actions. Which actually brings me to an important point, because today's episode, just like all my episodes, is not sponsored. This podcast and many of my videos are actually made possible by the lovely humans who support me with their monthly contribution on Patreon. And if you'd like to do that, and of course you'll get also access to exclusive perks, then check out the link below. So let's dive into today's episode. First, we need to start by acknowledging what is our brain's main job. Actually, our brain has just one job. While of course it has a lot of tasks to fulfill this job, its main job is your survival. So your brain's primary job is not to make you happy, not to make you confident, not actually to help you progress. Its main job is pretty simple. It's to keep you alive long enough to pass on your genes and then eventually to keep you alive as long as possible. It sounds kind of harsh, but it's the biological truth. Well, because of that, evolution shaped a brain that is hyper vigilant to anything it interprets as danger. It's extremely sensitive to anything that could harm you, and that's why it's also pretty bad at giving equal weight to positive experiences. This survival system is what neuroscientists refer to as the negativity bias, and it's actually very well documented. There's, for example, a paper by a scientist called Baumeister that is super famous. I'm going to link these below, and he calls the negativity bias bad is stronger than good. Don't worry, I'll make all of this super relatable for you today. And if you do want to dive deeper, as I said, I'll reference the papers below. So let's break down what bad is stronger than good really means and why or how it actually shows up on your bike as well. Bad is stronger than good means that the brain is like Velcro for the bad and Teflon for the good. So the bad really sticks and the good seems to just kind of disappear into the void. Threats activate your amygdala very quickly through a fast pathway that's called the subcortical pathway, meaning that the logical brain is not involved. Subcortical means below the cortex, so the information travels through older, more primitive brain structures before it actually reaches the conscious thinking brain. And that's why it activates the amygdala, which is the fear center of your brain, very quickly. So why do we have this pathway installed in the first place? Your brain would rather give you a false alarm than to miss a real threat. So you rather flinch 100 times at a shadow than miss a snake once, right? Well, this is also why that one crash feels more vivid than 25 good rides. Or one awkward trail moment loops in your head and overshadows the good ride. Or one harsh comment outweighs 15 encouraging ones. And this is not actually weakness, it's biology. On the other hand, positive events, they activate reward circuits, but they do so more slowly and less intensely. So unless you consciously savor these positive events, they fade really quickly. This, by the way, is why gratitude practice is more than woo-woo, and it actually helps you retrain your brain. I already have an episode about that. I'll link it below. So here's another layer. Negative events also trigger stronger brain chemistry. So when your brain detects danger or anything it interprets as danger, it releases neurochemicals such as cortisol and adrenaline. These neurochemicals, they heighten your alertness, they lock in that memory, and they narrow perception. And that's exactly why you still remember your crash from 5 years ago. And positive events, they create small dopamine pulses. They are nice and they feel good, but they are subtle. And also, dopamine is short-lived unless it's repeated consciously. And that is why when I say celebrate small wins, this isn't just fluffy advice. It's literally counter-conditioning ancient circuitry. So the result of this chemistry and that faster, more memorable pathway I talked about is that the negativity bias builds its own highway. Here's also where Hebbian learning comes in, because neurons that fire together wire together. So if you repeatedly think about the things that went wrong, your brain gets faster at noticing what's going wrong. It gets more efficient at retrieving what went wrong. And it gets super automatic at predicting negativity. So you're not imagining it. Your brain can actually get better at being negative. It's whatever you practice, you get better at. But now, wait for it, this is the empowering part. You can train your brain to do exactly the opposite. But before I dive into that, I just thought about something that I want to mention right here, because this is exactly why we need to be extremely mindful about who we spend the most of our time with, because negativity is super contagious. Negative environments, they are so hard not to soak up, because environment always trumps willpower in the long run. It's hard work to stand strong against our environment, and in the long run, we will always give in. So this is another topic for another episode, but for today, let's stick to the good news, the powering part, that we can become more positive. Remember at the beginning of the episode, I said the RAS, your brain's filter. The RAS is the Reticular Activating System. You can imagine it to be your brain's attention bouncer. It's actually a network in your brainstem that decides which sensory information reaches consciousness. And think of it as the bouncer at a nightclub. It only lets in what it thinks is relevant. So how does it decide what is relevant? Well, it decides based on what you repeatedly engage with. So your interactions train your bouncer. What you interact with, what you engage with, trains your brain's filter. And that is exactly why if you engage with drama on social media and in real life, you'll get more drama. Not because there actually is more drama, but because you start noticing more drama. If you focus on complaining or putting yourself down, you'll start to see more and more proof that you're really not worthy, that you're not good enough. But on the other hand, if you consciously reinforce progress, your RAS, that bouncer, starts presenting you more evidence of progress. So essentially, your brain is not a camera. It doesn't show you reality as it really is. It shows you what you have trained it to notice. So you can think of your brain like cosmic Google. It will literally search for what you tell it to search for. And your search history is biased by what you've been engaging with before. So let's look at how this affects your riding, because after all, this is a mountain biking podcast, right? Well, here's a mountain bike example where all of this becomes incredibly practical. Let's say you're riding a rocky section and your ancient brain does this instantly. It'll scan for the worst line, for example, or it'll look at the off-camber section or the most slippery section. And I do this all the time but I notice it and then I change it. And that's why I wanted to record this episode. So your brain locks in those dangers, like the huge rock or the cliff next to the trail. That's when your visual field narrows and your body stiffens. And that precisely is survival mode. And honestly, survival mode rides pretty horribly because you become more likely to hit the exact thing that you fear. And that's not because you're bad at writing, it's because your RAS is doing its job, maybe a little too well. So the RAS is filtering your perceived reality based on what you're engaging with, which affects how you ride, which in turn, of course, affects your actual and your future reality. On the other hand, when you deliberately look at the safer or smoother line, or when you're giving yourself clear cues on what you should focus on, there's actually research that shows that talking to yourself out loud isn't crazy. It actually calms you and helps you focus. But again, a topic for another episode. So all this conscious focus regulation sends new instruction to your RAS. Like, this is relevant, this is exactly what I want more of. And that's how your RAS updates. And that's how your amygdala quiets down, your prefrontal cortex, that's your logical thinking, wakes up again, and basically your skills come back online. And that's why when you're out noticing that your vision is going to a bad line and you notice that you stiffen up, that's exactly what's happening, what I just shared. And when you then consciously you direct your vision to a smoother line, you'll feel that, especially if you add some physical cues like look where you want to go, soft on my braking, that's when you start to relax. And that's why the mountain bike, or the classic mountain bike cue, look where you want to go, is not just like poetic advice, it's literal motor science. Actually, there was a research paper by Corbetta and Schulman called the Attention Network Research. And they put it like this. They said, attention, if I'm recalling this correctly, attention directs perception, perception directs movement, and movement directs outcome. So it's this self-feeding loop that you can practice and engage with and enhance every time you're out riding. And this will transfer to many, many areas in your life because you are literally training your reticular activating system to either focus on threat or to focus on the good thing and to focus on your progress. And this applies not only to riding, but you can keep really focusing on these individual elements by either telling yourself what you did good today and focusing on which good lines you hit, or by engaging with whatever you did wrong that day or with the bad lines you took. So here's my practical brain training that you can start today. It's actually, I'm going to give you 5 extremely simple but evidence-aligned tools that retrain the negativity bias and reshape the RAS. One is the 3-2-1 rule. So for every negative thought or comment, you name 3 positives consciously. You do this once a day, and I promise you it's going to change how you feel, how you act, and what you start noticing, because you're restoring the brain's natural imbalance. Number 2, I've already mentioned this, is say cues out loud, because speaking engages the motor cortex and the prefrontal logical regions. So it stabilizes attention, it improves learning, and it reduces fear responses. So on trail, what I do in German, da is the word there. I don't know if you know that song, da, da, da. I teach this in my in-person and also in my online courses a lot, that I say, when you're out on the trail, say there, there, there. So in German, da, da, da. That is where I want to go. That is where I want to go next. And that is when I want to go next. So you're training your brain to look and to focus on the next part and not to get stuck on some danger. So there, there, there. Cues like this really help your brain to get back into the now and to get back into the focus you're actually trying to focus on. Something like heavy in the feet or modulate the brakes. These have to be short cues that actually tell you what to do and get you back in the positive loop. Tip number 3 is, or tool number 3 is, celebrate micro wins. I know it sounds super Instagram advice, but it is neuroscience. Dopamine reinforces what you should repeat. So you, just by celebrating that micro wins, you are telling your brain what you want it to remember, and you give your brain something to anchor. You can imagine dopamine to be like glue, to act like glue in your brain. So by celebrating micro wins, you're gluing in those wins and you're making them more probable to occur next time. Tool number 4 is practice the deliberate line scan. So for example, write a section several times and deliberately write different lines each time. Then choose the smoothest one and write it 3 more times. So this is basically the 3-to-1 rule applied to line choice. This trains your precision, but also your brain to follow your cues instead of just its ancient impulses. So by writing that section several times and choosing the line deliberately, you really help your brain to follow your cues and you train it not to follow its ancient cues. You can also do this in daily life, like deliberately do things differently. Brush your teeth with the other hand, stir your tea or your coffee with the other hand. Change things around to train your brain to start using new pathways and to follow you versus you following the ancient pathways of your brain. And now this one is a biggie. I've already talked about it in past episodes, but tool number 5 is curate what you put in. And that is also your digital input, but also who you surround yourself with. Because your RAS learns from every interaction, especially online, because we spend so much time there, and because honestly, most apps are designed to hijack our dopamine systems. So many of these experiences just feel more memorable. I know I say this a lot, but I do because it matters. It matters for your mental health and also for your happiness and confidence on and off the bike. Engage with what you want more of. It's as simple as that. Engage with it. And then you will start seeing more of it. Ignore what you don't want to see. I know it's very hard at first because we've trained ourselves with all the rage bait and everything else. But honestly, the harder something is, the more we'll profit from it. And this again is not woo-woo, it's operant conditioning. So here's my final message for today. Your brain's negativity bias, yes, it's ancient software, but it's designed to protect you. But let's be honest, we're not living in a cave anymore, yeah? We don't need to hunt. And chances are that most threats your brain is perceiving is actually not really a threat. You know, we're mountain bikers navigating trails and humans basically living a modern life. Yes, of course, there are threats in both of these scenarios, but not near as many as our ancient brain wants us to believe. And both our real life and mountain biking are excellent opportunities to train exactly that, to train our focus and to train our brain to follow what we want it to follow, because our entire reality depends on what we feed our brain and how we train our brain. Those circuits can be reprogrammed, and you can do it because you can't fully delete the bias, but you can train your attention, you can update your filters, and you can build neural pathways that make confidence and clarity and a positive focus more automatic. And mountain biking really is one of the most powerful tools for this. So is the way you use social media, because both give you that daily chance to choose your focus and to teach your brain what actually matters to you. So just remember that your brain is not lying to you out of malice. It's really trying to protect you, and you can teach it a better way. And that is exactly where real change begins, on and off the bike. That's all I've got for you today. I hope you found this episode helpful. As I said, it's made possible by my patrons. If you would like to become a patron, you'll find the link below. Much, much love. Have a lovely day, morning, or evening. I'm Roxy.